Hey everybody, how you doing? I wanted to just kind of do a little quick follow-up from my Cybertruck experience. That video's doing pretty well. I'm not too shocked by it. The Cybertruck was just like blowing up everywhere. First of all, I clearly have travel issues because it seems like lately every time I travel somewhere, I come back and I'm sick. I get sick every time. And I was just getting over the last time I went out to California for the Ludicrous Future Live thing and the Andy Weir thing. I came down with something after that, and I was just getting over it. And the thing is, like, I get sick for a couple of days, like sick, like, ugh, for a couple of days, and then it's just like the crud after that. Like, it just takes forever for all the snot to stop flowing. I was just starting to get over it, and then I flew out there again, and just that's all it took. I was sick again. That's not normal for me. I don't know what's going on here. So that's why my voice sounds kind of the way it does right now. But no, so, I recorded the thing that you guys saw the other day, literally like right after it happened. I recorded it that night. So those were like initial impressions. And something about me is my initial impressions are rarely the ones that stick. I would be a terrible food critic or music critic for that matter, because I have to sit with things for a while. And I'm not somebody that makes up my mind quickly. I'm very much like, well, I mean, I don't really get it, but let me take a minute. Things just, my opinions and my thoughts evolve a lot. And that's happened here. And I don't think I'm alone in that. So first of all, like, this was the first Tesla event that I'd ever been to and actually been in the room and seen the thing in person. And I knew, and I think I even said something about it on the podcast or something, that it's almost better to watch it live streamed. It's designed to be shot, and they've got big boom cranes and people on stage with steady cams. I mean, it's all designed so that you can see all the angles and everything. When you're there, first of all, you're only getting one angle. You're not really close unless you just happen to have been able to get up to the front, which I did not. I barely even got in there. It took a few days before I had a chance to finally sit down and actually watch the live stream and see all the different angles and the way, that it was all designed and stuff. And you got to see some of the renderings and the pictures and the video of it driving around and whatnot. And there are better angles of it than the angle, and I've heard other people say this too, than the angle on the side. There's a shock value to it. Like, your brain doesn't really know what it's looking at. Like, you've just never seen anything like this before. And at first it's just like, what is that? I thought it was ugly. I did. To be honest, when the thing first rolled out, like I said in the last video, there was a guy who worked on the design he was one of the design team, who had, spent a lot of time with this thing. He helped build it. And he was standing right next to me. And I was literally, like, I had my phone because I was trying to capture it for you guys, but I had my phone and I'm watching it and it rolled up and I was just like, what? And I actually did turn to him. I was like, is that really it? Oh yeah, that's it. Really? Okay. Now that I think about it, I probably totally offended him because he probably worked really hard on this thing. And I'm just sitting there like, what? It's just one of these things that when you first see it, your brain literally does not know how to process what it's looking at, As time has passed and as more stuff has come out about it, there's a lot of things about it that I actually think are really cool. If we can all kind of just get used to the design, maybe not like it, but at least get used to it. I said in the podcast that Tesla has a way of kind of being ahead of things, like with the screen in the Model 3. Even when I first saw that, I thought, that looks ridiculous. It looks like somebody just glued an iPad to a dashboard. But over time, I got used to it. I started to really like it. And now, all these new EVs that are coming out from major manufacturers like Ford are having these big giant screens in there, just like the Model 3. Like, they have started a trend that at first, I think most people, including myself, were kind of like, about. Now, I don't know if this radical redesign of what a truck can be is going to translate over to some other cars. There's something about that triangular shape on the top that is just not what we're used to seeing. And the one car that did that was I think the Pontiac Aztek was one of them. And it's derided across the board by most people as like one of the ugliest cars ever made. Like, it's famously ugly. And I think this one is, by a lot of people, going to be considered famously ugly for that same reason. There's just something about that triangular shape that just, what? Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that came out about it since the presentation that honestly I think probably were supposed to be in the presentation, but after that window incident, I'm pretty sure Elon was just like, let's just get this thing off the stage. He's staying there trying to give this really great presentation and give all this information about this car that he's obviously really passionate about, and it's just broken behind him, you know? So I think a lot of stuff did not get talked about. The amount of storage in it, not just in the back with the secret compartment underneath, but also in the frunk. There's a huge frunk. The aerodynamic design, there's been some stuff that's come out since then where people have kind of taken that design and, you know, done some computer simulations and found that it's actually got an insane drag coefficient on it, which didn't really surprise me too much, especially with the liner in the back that sort of covered up the back of it. Also, I was watching Jack Rickard. He's an EV guy, but he's also a truck guy. And he had some really great things to say about it in this big, long, like 2-hour stream where he was talking about it. So this design, this triangular design, is apparently called an XY design. I really need to look further into this because I didn't really know that it had a name. But he was talking about how like people have been talking about doing something like this for like 20 or 30 years because the point is, you know, the strongest shape in the world is a triangle. And so you have this car that's shaped like a triangle, which means that it takes a lot less metal to keep its strength. So, and that's why they talked about the exoskeleton on this car with the stainless steel. The weird angles and stuff means that it's basically an origami car. So instead of having to use big stamping machines and molding and stuff like that to put these cars together, they can literally take sheets of stainless steel, cut them out, score them, fold them, weld them all together, and you got your car. So that's why the price is so low. That's why you got a starting price that's lower than my car, you know? So that's kind of genius. Another thing about that sharp angle is you get more room in the back. That's up on top, and it's all covered with that gliding thing, whatever you call it, that liner. There's a lot of things about it that are actually kind of genius if you can look past the design. And you know, like I said in the podcast, Elon is very much a first principles kind of guy. And he probably looked at a truck, and he's one of these people that looks at it and says, but why does it look this way? And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a more functional car that could be cheaper to make, with more power, more speed. But what it really comes down to, it all kind of depends on how you look at it, because there's still some people that are like, I mean, there was a guy in my Patreon Discord channel who was basically saying, he drives a truck, I guess, for his job. He said, I want an EV truck, but I just cannot bring myself to drive around in that thing. A lot of people don't like being looked at. You know, a lot of people don't want to be going down the road and have everybody stare at them as they drive past, which is what's going to happen with this car. I mean, I get stared at sometimes in my Model 3, and that's a pretty normal looking car by all accounts. I get that. And I'm about to go see some people at Thanksgiving and over the holidays. And I'm going to be talking to them, family members that live out, you know, here in Texas that drive pickups. And I'm curious to see what they'll say about it. I'm sure, I feel pretty sure a lot of them are going to be like, yeah, it's neat, but I would never drive one of those. Wouldn't be caught dead driving one. It's just too much. You know, it's just too weird. And they would get too much attention for it. And I get that. So I guess for those people who want an electric truck but don't want to, you know, be stared at everywhere they go, there's something like the Rivian. There's the Ford electric F-150 that's coming out. So there'll be options there. Something that Jack said in his video that I do kind of disagree with. He thought that the fact that they did the pre-orders for $100 was kind of cowardly on their part. I disagree with that. I think that they knew that they had a very radical design that would just be very polarizing, and a lot of people would have trouble with it. So I think what they did was they're like, let's just put the purest form of this thing out there, knowing that they're going to iterate on it. What comes out is going to be different in some various ways. For one thing, windshield wipers would be nice. Anyway, no, by doing it at $100, yeah, they've got like, what was the last time I saw was 189,000 pre-orders for this thing. Now, there were 250,000 in the first day for the Model 3, but that was a $1,000 deposit. This is a $100 deposit. But I think what they were doing, I think is actually kind of smart, because they were like, look, this is going to be a super weird design. People aren't going to know what to think about it. So let's just put it out there and have a really low entry point to reserve it and just see how many people would reserve it. Because, yes, probably at least half, maybe more, maybe not quite that many, but a lot of the people that put $100 down are not going to wind up actually getting the truck. But it shows interest, and it shows whether people would actually be okay with that design. Despite what I just said about some people not wanting to get stared at, some people see it as a flex, as Hank Green said in his video. Some people would see it as just they like something new and different, and they want to live in the future, you know? And then there's just the Tesla, you know, fanboys that are going to buy anything. I've had several people ask if I would get one. No. And I didn't put a reservation down or anything, because I don't need a pickup truck. I have no use for one. I don't even have room in my garage to park something like that. So, I mean, you know, just for the same reason I didn't order a Model Y. I don't go out and buy every Tesla vehicle. I wanted an electric car, and I needed something that could get me the kind of range to go see my family here in the, you know, long distance drives in Texas. And really the only one at the time, the only one that I could afford barely that could achieve that was the Model 3. So that's why I got it. I've heard a lot of people say the more they look at it, the more used to it they get. I think it's just your brain just does not know what to think when it first sees it. And they certainly, if anything else, I can give them credit for being super bold and not playing it safe. You know, they could have made something that everybody expected, and they made something no one saw coming. For better and for worse, they put it out there, and they broke their windows in the process. I don't know. You've seen all the memes. There's a lot of people that think this is the absolute dumbest thing they've ever done. It's very polarizing. It's very, we're going to do it this way, and we don't care. No, it'll be interesting to see how things evolve from here. I mean, I've certainly evolved just in the last, 4 or 5 days since I saw it. And a lot of other people have too. And I think the more we get used to seeing it in memes and on computer, and especially once we start seeing it out in public, I mean, who knows? You never know, man. Yeah, those are my second impressions. I gave you my first impressions after the presentation, but that's where I've evolved to at this point, and I'm sure I will continue to evolve, and the car will evolve. So we'll see. With that, I'm gonna head out. Gonna leave you. Hope you guys all have a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. I don't know how many countries around the world celebrate. I know it's a very American thing, but maybe it's just an American thing. But if you celebrate it, I hope you have a good one. Eat well, and yeah, I'll check in a little bit later. Peace.